Hello, everyone. This is Farah Danish, the calm autism mom. What do I have for you? I have something that's been on my mind for the longest time, and I really don't know why I haven't spoken about this already. You see, my son, my teenage son who's on the spectrum, my journey with him has been, quite an interesting one. Interesting one in the sense that, and I'm sure all autism moms out there can relate to this, the usual, you go get a diagnosis and not much is said after that in terms of how are we going to navigate this. The only thing that you're told is, and the only thing that's shoved into your face, is the number of therapies your child is going to need to be able to function in life. And I get it. I mean, it's not their job to give you hope. That is completely on you, what you take from this. But the title that really stuck with me is not so much the autism, because even though I have a brother on the spectrum, I do know that learning is possible, that they can have a normal, functional, thriving life. They can. I grew up with autism, right? But when my son got the diagnosis, the thing that stuck with me was the title of learning disability. That title can be quite crippling. So it's not really autism, but the fact that the word learning disability is attached to autism, quite often so. And that is what can really scare parents off. Speaking from my own experience, that's exactly what it did to me. And the thing that really kept me going is then realizing that as I was working with him, closely working with him, seeing him making improvements, I saw that there is intelligence. Ta-da! Every human being has some innate intelligence. They have the ability to learn. And so when someone tells me that, there is a learning disability, it actually kind of negates that. It tells me that your child doesn't have the ability to learn. He's learning disabled. I mean, why would you call a child learning disabled when he has the potential to learn at his own pace, but he has the potential to learn? So that title for me was a very crippling one, and I'm so glad I got out of that and decided not to follow these titles that, the world outside has placed on our children. Getting the diagnosis should actually mean that we get the help we need for our children. But what happens is, unfortunately, is that because it's a spectrum, our child is boxed into this label, into this title, and everything is then looked through that lens. So there are a lot of parents out there who have now diagnosed their teenagers and found out that their teenagers are on the spectrum. So that's how subtle it can be, that even parents who are living with their own children fail to see the signs. So how are teachers supposed to spot this? How are therapists supposed to spot this? It's so complex. It's not that simple. And that's where I say it's so important to notice these things and not follow the herd and not insist. That is the word I'd like to use, not insist on following the crowd. And once I was able to get out of that and work at my own pace, things started to make sense, not only for me, but for my child. His self-esteem changed. His self-esteem improved. He was not always singled out that he's different, he's different, he's different, because we gave him the space to learn at his pace, if that makes sense. But unfortunately, for a majority of us autism moms, what happens is that learning disability title, for teachers and for caregivers, caretakers, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. So even if the child is not exhibiting the kind of behaviors maybe another autistic child is, but just because he has that label, there's this assumption that he will also do this. He will also have behavioral challenges. There are a lot of autistic kids out there who don't exhibit behavioral challenges, but there is this assumption that their behaviors need to be fixed. And that's where the aggression, that's where the anxiety, that's where all this mistrust, all of this stems from this not recognizing the actual need, rather than going in and fixing something because there's a label attached to it. And that is something I have a problem with. Another thing that also happens is that schools also are, unfortunately, they follow a cookie cutter approach. So if a child gets a diagnosis of autism, therefore certain accommodations should be provided regardless of whether the child needs it or not. And again, this is back to the same point I'm trying to make, that word learning disability, autism and learning disability, it's not a disability. They just learn differently. And not all autistic kids are nonverbal. Not all autistic children have sensory challenges. They do, but at varying degrees. Again, not all, but the ones who do have it at varying degrees. It's so difficult to tell. Not all individuals on the autism spectrum have intellectual difficulties as well. We need to understand what autism is and what all these other conditions that are usually, that can exist with autism are. They're two different things. Oftentimes, parents who have children on the spectrum just assume, because that's what they've been told, right? Autism is a learning disability. They go into this downward spiral, even though their child has so much potential. And we're seeing this now. We're seeing, great inventors. We're seeing great speakers, great leaders, most of whom have had an autism diagnosis, and they didn't let the word learning disability bring them down. Just because your child has been diagnosed with autism, don't let the term learning disability, which is usually attached to it, bring you down, because he has intelligence, she has intelligence, she can have a thriving life. All she needs is for you, moms, parents, caretakers, family, his or her family, to believe in them, to believe that they have that intelligence. That's what they need. I'd love to hear more from you. What else would you like me to talk about? Do like and subscribe, and I await your feedback. Take care. Have a great day.